How's it going, everyone? It's Daniel here of the GZ Chop Shop with fellow host, Greg. Okay, we had a little bit of a debate before this. Our friend Patrick intentionally pointed out some things, so I'm hosting today. Okay, that's right. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to check us out at gzchopshoppodcast.com.
Can we just give a round of applause to Daniel for his first host introduction? That was actually pretty good. I'm proud of you. You did me proud.
I'm proud of me. So today we're going to be talking Nintendo Direct, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of mixed reactions with Nintendo right now. On one hand, people are excited that we're getting a Switch 2. It's been talked about for quite a few years with some alleged leaks here and there. How old is the Switch now? Coming up
It's
on what?
10 years.
10 years old?
Yeah.
And before we go into the conversation on the Switch 2, mind you, regardless of how we feel about Nintendo, they didn't just outsell Xbox and PlayStation. They dominated in every way, and a variety of factors went into it, of course, but there's no way around it. When it came to those three consoles, Switch dominated, and the Switch was it was great for what it is. And here they are. They dropped a Switch 2, and real quick, let's look at these specs. The specs alone on the Switch 2, okay? And I come at this because what have people been talking about when it comes to the Switch in recent years? It's the graphics. And it seems everyone is under the impression that Nintendo and Nintendo games should always have the same exact top tier graphical capabilities as PlayStation and Xbox, and the graphics card is the thing that matters the most, yada yada yada. And that's just not true. So we're gonna go over the new specs here. The size is going to be about the same. It looks like it's a little bit bigger, 4.5 inches tall, 10.7 inches wide. The screen's going to be a 7.9 inch LCD screen. It's going to support HDR10 up to 120 hertz and 1920 over 1080 pixels. And then we get down to the video output. 3840 by 2160. That's 4K resolution at 60 FPS. That's what they're at least saying it's capable of. And 4020 FPS at the regular like HD 1920 over 1080 resolution, so while still supporting HDR10. And if this is to be taken at face value, and this is true, then that's really good in my opinion for Nintendo and for any game that comes out. Those are, hell, PCs. People have PCs that don't even run it at what this is alleging it can do. The issues that people are having are not just the price tag. I think the price tag was slightly expected, and this was before the tariffs were announced, but the price of the games. And I know that's something you had some things to say about there. $80 started off the rip.
Starting off at $80. And so it's coming through. I don't know how true this is. Have to do a little bit more digging. A lot of people are saying that it's misinformation that the physical copy is going to be $90 and that the digital and physical are both going to be $80, which is still a little pricey, especially in today's economy. Regardless if that's true or not, $80 is $80. That's nothing to sneeze at. But if it is true that the physical copy will be $10 more, I will say we shot ourselves in the foot with our own gun, because Nintendo gave us what we asked for in a very messed up way. And you're probably thinking to yourself, when did we ever ask for this? Well, we did it in a roundabout way when we said, doesn't digital cost less than physical? Which I stand by, because a physical copy, I'm getting a tangible, collectible item for the money that I've spent that can never be taken away from me, granted the game being actually on the disc and not just a CD key. Where digital is a long-term loaner that at any given moment, the license can expire, the company no longer wants to provide, and they get to walk away with your money because you agreed to the terms of service to even play the game. So that money just gets burned up. You get no return on investment. Nintendo basically, if the games are $80 and $90, solve both problems while charging what they want, because they said, hey, the digital is less than the physical, like you wanted.
It's assholes.
But this is the new price point.
Nintendo is so greedy. They are the greediest ones out of all three. I get angry with Microsoft with their bullshit. Sony has their bullshit, and Nintendo by far is the worst, and I will die on this hill.
So I will say, and this is not me cutting Nintendo's slack, but I will say there is a hindsight thing that a lot of us are forgetting, and I think this is where their $80 price point came from for their games. Nintendo's subscription service is by far the cheapest of the three.
Is that it's what, $5.99?
Yeah, you can get
for just a single.
Yeah, you can get an entire year for your family, multiple accounts.
Yeah, it's like $60, $70 or something
for like $100 or less.
Which is what Game Pass used to be, or Xbox Live. It was what Xbox Live used to be back in the day.
Yeah, and now that'll, Game Pass will run you up to about the same amount as PlayStation if you pay it for a year. You're looking like over $100, almost $200 guaranteed.
Now, what about these game upgrades that they're charging for?
The game upgrades, I cannot justify those. It's, the word is that
I don't think
nobody can justify those. The word is that to upgrade games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom to be Switch 2 worthy, kind of like what the PS5 did with PS4 games, Nintendo is going to charge extra $20 to $30 for
this is where my confusion was. Are they charging? Are they saying they're going to charge us if we want to play the game that we have for the Switch 1 on Switch 2? Or are they charging us to upgrade the graphics? What are they charging us for?
To pretty much upgrade it, which Sony did the same thing for a lot of games. Not every game that could be PS5 upgraded was free. A lot that was kind of like up to the devs. Most Nintendo games, they're Nintendo. Nintendo is the dev, so they can do that. But
I should still be able to play my game the way it is.
You can still play it the way it is, but I
guarantee you it's a waste of money. You spend $30, $40 or whatever to upgrade your game, and then you upgrade it and it looks the fucking same.
Now, here's the thing. I don't think Nintendo is stupid. You don't get to be a company over 100 years old by not knowing how to play the game that you created.
Bastards.
So I think what you're going to see is the Switch 2 is probably going to intentionally highlight how big of a difference it is between the Switch and the Switch 2 in terms of quality. I think they're going to make it so you see just how, I don't want to say bad, but you know how like you look back at a game you used to look at as a kid, you thought this was the peak of gaming? Like how we remember Ocarina of Time in our minds compared to how it actually looks.
Very pixelated,
and very blocky.
Yeah.
You can cut your eyes on that stuff. I think what's going to happen is the Switch 2, because it's so powerful, is going to intentionally downgrade or make very obvious the difference in quality.
Now, I've seen a lot of people online saying the opposite. They think that like Duskbloods. I've seen people suggesting trying to say that the game looks like a PS2 game, which I think's a bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah.
You can argue that maybe the recording of a game on YouTube looks a certain way or doesn't look that great, but to say PlayStation 2 graphics, have you not played a PlayStation 2? I think complaining about the Nintendo and saying that it has PlayStation 4 graphics doesn't make sense, because the specs are highlighted. And I think the recording that you see put on the internet is just not going to reflect the final product. And it usually doesn't.
And I wish people would understand that, YouTube videos, especially of game recordings, go through levels of compression and processing. This is like the same argument when Resident Evil 4 Remake got announced and people were complaining about the rain graphics and how terrible they look. And when we got the game, we realized the rain graphics were actually fine. But when the videos go through compression and reach YouTube, you're not seeing the game in its actual quality. You're seeing it like after 2 levels of compression from whatever capture device they use that compressed it so that they can edit it. And then once they put it on YouTube, it gets compressed even further. So the visual quality is going to change so that video can actually be uploaded to their server. It has to be minimized in size.
Yeah. And like most of the complaints, I feel like a lot of the complaints are valid, especially when it comes to the price. The only one that I'm just not buying is the complaints about the graphics. I feel like that's just complaining. Like you're already complaining about everything else, so now you're just complaining about more shit. Complain about the facts. Complain about the things that are true, not the things you're perceiving.
Yeah. I think and I'm sorry, I'm going to die on this hill. I blame the PC community for the graphics arguments, because we know a majority of them are heavy on GPU and
which is crazy to me because because I'm a PC gamer, I love my rig, and yet the amount of PC gamers I know that can't build a rig worth a damn, I'm not even kidding. They'll have an i5 and be like, well, I have a 60,000 Ti. I'm like, yeah, but the rest of your stuff shit, dude.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other story. But yeah, you get these people that they buy a rig online, they get the best graphics card, and then they try to explain to everyone else how wrong they are or how wrong all the other. It just blows my mind how many of them are just wrong when it comes to talking about graphics. The Nintendo Switch 2 on paper is a lot of things people asked for. And then you get into, again, the prices and the upgrade shit. I would not be surprised if they change their online subscription fees at some point.
I don't think they're going to do that.
I'm very surprised it's been $5.99 for this long.
I don't think Nintendo's going to change their subscription fees because they've always marketed themselves as a family-oriented company, and love them or hate them, they've stuck true to that. And their subscription fees being the price that they are, it's because they know they don't focus heavily on online. They have online-esque games, but they're not high-profile games like Call of Duty, Valorant. I think their highest-profile online game is Fortnite. And they're not charging you really to play Fortnite. They're charging you to play their games online, but they know a majority of their player base is playing at home with the people in the house. So changing their subscription fee to be more would do them more harm than good. Now, my question is, everyone is upset about the price point for, let's say the top end of the Nintendo Switch, $499. And let's not forget, Sony released the PS5 Pro at a price point of like $700. Now,
they really did, and everyone's just going to forget about that.
Yeah. Now, Sony did get a little pushback, but I will tell you this. I saw more people posting their pictures. I did a thing. I bought a PS5 Pro at its still $700 price point, and we're upset at Nintendo having a $499 price point. And I know some people said, oh, it's not the cost of the console, it's the cost of the games. And, well, I hate to say it, Nintendo has their own market. They can do that. They sell nostalgia.
I will say the argument that Nintendo is being greedy with their IPs and all that, I disagree. I disagree. I think everyone's getting a little spoiled because Microsoft's failing so fucking bad that they have to start sharing all their shit. And I said what I said. And I used to own an Xbox. I am a fan in some ways of Microsoft. And I have my issues with Sony. I will call these studios out as I see them. But just because Microsoft wants to share their games to pretend to appease their fans because they're sucking at a bunch of other things, does not mean everyone else has to do anything. And I know if I was a business and I had a product that overwhelmingly sold every single season of new console that I put out, I wouldn't be budging. And the truth of the matter is the Switch 2 is probably going to sell
absolutely
just as well, if not better somehow, than the first Switch. So I think people are just mad that they're going to have to pay money that they don't want to pay, which I don't blame them. I don't blame them in that. The price tags I think are ridiculous.
I also think that a lot of scalpers are outing themselves as and masking like your average gamer because of the restrictions that Nintendo has put in place to pre-order on their site.
Well, and that's another thing that people have been upset about too, is the process to pre-order, which the process to pre-order specifically through Nintendo, not necessarily to pre-order through, I guess, like Best Buy or whatever. But this is, again, we wanted something in place to deal with scalpers, and now we have something in place to deal with scalpers, and people are pissed.
So here's a fun fact, and I don't know if you knew this. The scalpers are such a problem, and most of them apparently stem from America. The restrictions that are put in place are not as severe in Japan. Because what happened when the Switch launched, the American scalpers bought the systems in Japan because they're always cheaper in Japan. And in case people didn't know this, the price for our version and the Japanese only version are almost like $50 difference. Theirs is cheaper than ours. And what happened was the scalpers bought up all the international ones in Japan at a cheaper price and then resold them at a marked up value in America. So what they did with the Switch 2 is the Japanese versions are going to be completely Japanese. They will not play in a different language. They were like, nope, our international versions, even in Japan, are going to be $450 to, $500. And the Japanese only version is going to be, the cheaper version. So if you are fluent in reading at Japanese and, you don't mind playing your console in Japanese, you can get the Switch 2 at a more affordable price from Japan directly. Sucks for scalpers because they'll have a whole load of systems that they can't offload. But yeah, we kind of let scalpers run rampant for too long, which kind of forced Nintendo to do this, because I think that's also why they do the games the way they do, because their games are collectibles. You're not going to find a Nintendo game on any other system, and you can't sell emulation. A Nintendo game is a collector's item. That's
and you got to think too, like Nintendo is the one company whose games you can't emulate, because if you do emulate and they find out, they will literally try to send you to jail. It is crazy. What was that one dude back a few years ago? Ended up, I think he went to jail, or
he got like a huge fine. I remember your time. I don't remember his name, but he got like a huge fine because he was emulating Nintendo games. And
I don't remember who. It was a while ago, but that's just one example. I mean, for a while there, Nintendo was on a roll. Like some YouTubers mentioned Nintendo on their fucking
Nintendo's like
the way they mentioned it, and they like flipped out. So you gotta be careful with them. I'm surprised people even stream. Now, matter of fact,
it's risky.
It's risky to even stream their stuff. Like it's crazy how much they don't care about suing you.
I think, and like I said, I'm not cutting them slack. I'm looking at this from a business perspective. Nintendo knows the product they have, and they don't want the importance of the product they have to get watered down, which is something emulators would do. Because if they're selling nostalgia, they're selling collectibles, and then and you can just go emulate it, you wind up in the Microsoft situation, which is probably why Nintendo laughed Microsoft out of their office all those years ago. They already knew that they had a bad business plan, because look at what Game Pass is doing to Microsoft. it's causing them to bleed money, because now people are saying, why should I buy a game when I can just do the subscription service and get that game for free?
Yeah, and I mean, not to go too off in a different direction here, but that's something we have been talking about for years, is how much money Microsoft is losing because of Game Pass, because nobody's buying the games. And when these studios do not get the full price of their games given back to them, back to those same studios, and they don't get a return in profit and some, what do you think happens?
And I
And
think
it's built up a negative deficit.
Yeah. And I think Nintendo is just thinking of its long term, because once they sell us a physical copy of the game, that's it. It's out of their hands. There's no taking it back.
That's a thing too, is the key cards that they're going to be doing. I don't know if you read about those, but my understanding, I don't think it's all of the games, but they're going to be introducing them. And it's basically what we all know games are anyways, but the game is not going to be downloaded on the hard copy anymore.
I've heard
the hard copy is going to be the key to download the game from online.
I've heard two things on that. We won't know for sure until it comes out. I don't want to theorize on that too much, because you don't want to create a false sense of panic. It's like, oh, well, then the physical copy is completely pointless, which, yeah, Nintendo, because they did it, I think like 2 years ago, they partnered up with a mobile company. So yeah, they're making a big push into the digital age, but they also know half of their market is physical copies, collectibles. And if they push too hard into that, I think they would do themselves more harm than good. Probably for like their high profile IPs, they know people would try to emulate. They might do that, as like an extra security measure of some sort. But I don't see every one of their games going in that direction.
I think from their perspective, and Sony and Microsoft's, when there's a time where you can go and you could go to the bin at Walmart or whatever, and you could dig through $5 games just like you could movies, and you'd find a game, you're like, oh, it's $5 or whatever the case. You could go to, even now, for the ones that are still around, you can go to GameStop and buy a used game. And what do you think is going to happen?
People are asking, they're like, well, if you go to the store and you get a Switch 2 pre-owned game, but because that person already used the code and you go to put the game in, is it just not going to work?
Well, it's gonna, not that, I mean, GameStop has games. I feel bad saying this because I think GameStop holds a special place, especially to millennials, but they also did it to themselves. So I feel bad, but I also don't feel bad for GameStop. But let's be honest, this next generation of consoles, GameStop's probably not going to make it through this next big push through the next gen of consoles when everything does go digital. I mean, unless GameStop turns into a bunch of retro graded arcade plazas and
they've been expanding their retro stores, selling all the systems that they have in warehouses that weren't selling. They've brought them out of their warehouses and refurbished them, and
which is something I think GameStop, that might be their go-to, is they might have to all go to that model if they wanted to still stay in the game and not go under.
Well, I mean, that's finite, because eventually that backlog is going to run out. I don't see people that buy those collectible consoles taking them back. It's people who miss their childhood. They cherish that stuff. So that those warehouses will eventually run out. That's borrowed time.
Yeah. And I mean, even with all that, digital is still it's going to ultimately take over. I mean, there's no way to go with this. And it's not like, and Nintendo knows this with old games. I can sell you or give you an old game from an old system. With these new systems, I can't do that. They weren't making back money with the reselling of their games.
Yeah, they pretty much have eliminated people being able to share games, because it's the same thing that streaming companies have done. They got tired of people sharing the password. They said one person buys the account, but 30 people are watching from this one account. We're missing out on 29 people making us money. So how do we fix this? We limit it. We put penalties in place. Password shares not allowed. If you started off in New Jersey and then 2 minutes later it says you logged in Los Angeles, California, and no, you're done. You know,
you out of here.
So yeah, video games are going the same route. And like I said, from a business perspective, as a business owner myself, I get where they're coming from, but they're so massive. I don't think it would have hurt them to keep things the way they are. That's like a strategy a smaller business has to take into consideration to survive, you know, because you need that revenue to become a bigger business. But Nintendo's been around for 100 years. You know, their games were getting passed around left and right for decades, and they didn't go under. Yeah, they weren't making, you know, that money, but they thrived.
I'm surprised Nintendo doesn't have like Nintendo only arcades just throughout the country just to make more money.
They might, just probably not in America.
It just seems like a move they'd make, and then they'd like, I don't know, charge you a monthly membership
or
something. I don't know.
And it would go and it would work. It would absolutely work. People would pay for it.
It would sell like crazy.
It would sell like crazy. Here's the thing. Every time Nintendo drops something, people get upset. That's nothing new. They get upset at the price, and people have been showing pictures from way back in the day that Nintendo games, certain Nintendo games, they're very selective on the ones they take pictures of, sold for $80 back in the day. And the one argument that drives me up a wall is the inflation argument. People always keep going, well, if you adjust for inflation, games today would actually be $150. No, $80 is $80 freaking dollars. No matter what era you cut it in, no matter what way you try to spin it, inflation is a fancy word for greed. And this is a hill I'm going to die on. I'm sorry if I tick off anyone who's studying economics and spent 4 or 5 years to learn all this extra jargon. How does inflation start? Well, they go, well, the demand for a product. Okay, why does the cost of a product go up? It's not a natural occurring thing. It's not a part of nature that suddenly makes the price of something go up.
Nature pricing.
Nature pricing. Inflation is someone literally waking up saying, I want to charge more for my product.
Whatever that reason is.
Whatever that reason is. And the way they justify it so that people don't get up in arms, they say, I had to hire more people. I had to outsource to more resources. Yet when you do enough digging, the amount of money spent to create said product is almost pennies. So what do they need the extra money for? And not to get too into the economics argument here, but this comes back down to billionaires, and why ethically they should not exist is because it's literally proven they have to abuse people to become billionaires. They're the ones that set inflation because they abuse workers, hiring and making this round the clock product that doesn't cost them that much money.
I like how Nintendo Direct led to you damn near having a whole crash out over billionaires. You're not wrong. But I'm going to stop you there before you go on a tangent. Because I see it coming.
It's always bugged me, especially with the video game argument. Everyone always goes, adjust for inflation, adjust for inflation. And I'm like, are you guys just going to throw out adjust for inflation because you heard that on a YouTube video and you're like, yeah, that sounds good. I'll sound smart. Me say adjust for inflation. No one argue. No one understand. And I'm like, dude, adjust for inflation. No, $80 is $80. The difference between today and then is the income matched the cost. The only reason people complain was because it was our parents buying the video games for us, and there was no value in their eyes to video games. They didn't see you making anything of it. They saw it as a waste of time. That was their complaint. And because who spends $200 on something they see as a waste of time? No one. That's why to them, they thought it was an expensive waste of time. It wasn't they couldn't afford it. It was just an expensive waste of time to them. I could put this $200 to something that will be useful in your future, but they had the income to match. Today, the income does not match the rising costs. And they're like, oh, well, inflation. And I'm like, you guys are not understanding. the costs go up, but weirdly enough, the pay can't go up to match. So how can the costs keep going up? That doesn't make sense. How
Doesn't
can the
make
costs
sense.
easily go up?
You know, and again, not to go off on a whole other.
I just had my crash on. I'm sorry, guys.
It's okay. But it does feel like sometimes there's just like some dude that's like, you know what? Fuck it.
Yo, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like, and it's just one guy just like, fuck everything. And then like the next day he's like sobering up. He's like, oh, it's okay. Bring it back down a little bit. It's okay.
Bring it down. We got a little too greedy. We got a little too greedy. People can't.
But yeah, you guys, you tell us what you guys think. Your thoughts, leave them down below in the comments. Talk to us. Are you happy with what Nintendo is doing with the Switch 2 and some of the changes they've made and some of the things they're bringing? Are you getting a Switch 2? Are you pissed? Are you pissed? Why? Tell us below, because we feel everything. We're on both sides of this. What do you guys think? Leave comments below for us.
Do you think my crash out is justified?
Do you think? And we will talk to you guys again on the next episode of the GZ Chop Shop. Later.